Okay, hi everyone. My name is Alex Sewell. I'm the Director of Marketing and Client Success at VRIFY, and I'm here today with Christian Easterday, who's the Managing Director and CEO of Hot Chili. We're going to be going through Hot Chili's VRIFY content today to discuss the Costa Fuego project. Christian, I'm going to pass it over to you for a moment and let you introduce yourself and give a little bit of background on what we're going to be talking about.
Thank you, Alex. Yes, we're a copper developer, an advanced stage copper developer. We've been listed since 2010. We currently trade on the ASX and TSXV under the ticker code HCH. We have been developing this asset from its initial discovery of our first project on the coastline of Chile, about 600 kilometers to the north of Santiago, and we've been developing these assets now for over 10 years. And in that time, we've built a very enviable large-scale resource base. We're currently rated as a top 10 undeveloped copper project in the world, low risk, and we're one of the few senior scale projects in the copper development pipeline outside of the majors, which is at low altitude, which is a key differentiation of this project in comparison to well-known names in the North American market, such as Filo Mining or Solaris or Los Andes, the high altitude players.
Great. So you've talked a little bit about what makes the project unique. Is there something in particular you're excited about before we dig into the 3D model a little bit more and talk about the resource bases?
Sure. Well, we've just taken a very important pivot back to growth this year. As most people know, we've been advancing this project through development studies. We've completed about 80% of a pre-feasibility on a project that is scaled around a study scale of 100,000 tonnes per annum of copper production and towards 70,000 ounces of annual gold production. The project mine life at this stage is around the 20-year mark. And this year, following further consolidation success in late 2022, we've been able to turn back on our drill rigs and really focus on another stage of growth, which has the company with an opportunity to scale this project towards one of the largest scale undeveloped copper projects in the pipeline outside of the major miners. We're now looking to, increase the size of the resource from circa 1 billion tonnes to facilitate a scale up on our study towards a 150,000 tonne per annum copper project and effectively ensure that the economics of Costa Fuego on this large coastal production hub that we're building ensure that we can take advantage of scale. And what that means in layman's terms is we are trying to position the cost base of Costa Fuego towards the first quartile on the cash cost curve for global projects. We already have a very low risk, low capital intensity project because we don't have large infrastructure such as large desalination plants to build or expensive large scale water pipelines to build into the high Andes. We have a project that is akin to a Jose Maria resource and development, but about 1/3 of the cost to build, and timed about the same as Jose Maria will be brought into production by Lundin Mining, just adjacent to us, but at 4,500 meters, not at 800 meters on the coast next to a port.
Are you, I think it would be helpful for anyone viewing this, if you can just transition a little bit to the Costa Fuego area. I know that it's referred to as a copper super hub, and I think the scale is quite impressive. If you want to just go into that.
Yeah, sure. And look, this next slide really shows you the extent of our land holding through various phases of consolidation. Our original Prototora project sitting right next to the Pan American Highway and sitting on that coastal strip right next to the town of Vallenar and the port facilities of Las Lozas. In more recent years, we've really transformed the scale of the project by adding the private discovery of Cortadera, a large porphyry that we have been drilling extensively for the past few years. And that additional resource at Cortadera has now almost quadrupled our resource base to around 927 million tonnes.
Amazing.
So we can probably look at the location of Costa Fuego, which is very unique. This is a digital elevation model showing you the location of our project right next to the Wasco Valley, but sitting in that blue and light green area. This is what is really unique. It is very easy to find these large-scale projects in the high Andes at 4,000 meters altitude. It is very rare to find project consolidations like this on the coastal range of Chile at this grade in the middle of infrastructure. So if we just dive into the project and the resource base, as you can see, the resource base is around a 927 million tonne mark. It is featuring one of the highest percentages of measured and indicated. We sit at about 82% definition. This project has had some $220 million invested into it over a 13-year period to build it to this stage. So what is really exciting is the company's next stage of exploration and resource growth, but also further consolidation opportunities in the area where we're currently looking to consolidate the entire region, build one processing hub at large scale, and unlock this entire coastal region for a large-scale production hub.
Amazing. And why don't we dig in a little bit to the resource bases, and if you can just run through some of the activities that are going on and any results that you want to share with us.
Sure. Well, look, I'll just zoom in quickly on the Cortadera porphyry discovery. Look, this has really transformed the company's outlook towards a future-facing company that is really at the forefront of probably what is going to be a copper surge in the coming years. There are three commodities that have dramatically re-rated in the past 2 decades. Iron ore in the early 2000s, lithium in the late teens, and we imagine that copper is probably showing the same attributes as those 2 commodity classes in front of a shift in demand. So to be holding a new porphyry discovery, one of only 2 major porphyry discoveries announced in the past 10 years in the Cortadera coastal porphyry, this is really what's upscaled the project towards 100,000. So our recent consolidation efforts have effectively given us control of the western extension of this deposit, currently comprising 3 porphyries, as you can see there in this view, extensively drilled with almost 100,000 meters of drilling, and 7 of the top 30 porphyry intercepts reported in the last 3 years in the industry coming out of this deposit. And what you can see just side on here is a 600 million tonne resource that will be exposed to large open pits and also underground cave development. When we look at the ore body in more detail, you can see how extensive this is. It's a 2.3 kilometre long system at the moment, and over a 1 kilometre vertical ore column as defined on the main porphyry there. What we're now doing is looking to take advantage of land that we have secured immediately adjacent to Cuerpo 1 that you can see on the left side of the screen. The resource at this stage, these are just a few different views of the ore body. Cuerpo 3 is the main porphyry. You can see the extensive high-grade core that was developed in that, and some of the open pit planning and underground planning on this particular resource that will feature as part of our 20-year mine life and be added to Prototora, which we'll look at shortly. But when I look at this resource and we zoom out, it is this land bridge immediately to the west, which has just recently been secured, which we'll be focusing some of our exploration efforts on. If we move now to the larger land holding, and we look from Cortadera in the green land holding back to our original project, Prototora, in the yellow land holding, we can probably now go in and look at the original resource that the company started with back in 2011 with this great open pit discovery on the coastline. This is just a view of the open pit pre-feasibility that was completed back in 2016 on this large shallow resource base. You can see this view looking down the length of Prototora. It's a breccia hosted ore body, and it has quite a significant component of high-grade material, very shallow, which we're really focusing in on right now in the red +4 and the +0.6 material in pink. This ore body is going to be exploited via a large-scale open pit. It's going to offer us access to quite a lot of high-grade material very early in the mine life of Costa Fuego, and you can see some of the various phases to these open pits and some of the cross sections showing that near surface bulk tonnage high-grade material, which will certainly feature well in the early stages of Costa Fuego's development. The processing facility will be located right next to this 2.5 kilometre long shallow open pit, and we'll be taking advantage of a lot of the infrastructure we'll look at shortly. These various views just show you the overall phasing of that large-scale open pit, and something that will take out some 200 million tonnes of material that will be going through the processing facility from this initial deposit. And I think this view here gives you a good representation of the ore body, around about 0.5%, but more importantly, about 1/3 of our resource base grades at about 0.8% copper equivalent, and underpins that high production capacity out of a 20 million tonne per annum processing facility. If we step back now and also look at some of the other ore bodies that are part of this production hub, we also have some high-grade satellites which we've been developing. These smaller resources, and San Antonio is one resource which we put initial drilling into and spent last year upgrading that into the indicated classification, which will come out later this year in our next resource upgrade. These were historical mines, stranded, family owned, that we've been consolidating into this play to give ourselves access to higher grade material which is going to go through the large scale processing facility at around 1% copper head grade. You can see these deposits are structural, smaller, and they will be used really just to fill areas in our production schedule where we'll be requiring better grades to maintain our production schedule. If we now look at the more recent news, which was announced at the end of last year and is underpinning a 10,000 metre drilling program, which the company is currently undertaking with 2 drill rigs on the ground. You can see here in green the location of Cortadera and the location of Prototora in the top left of that slide, but more importantly, this new land in the dark and light green, which has been acquired from Antofagasta Minerals and in public auction. And what that has done has given us the footprint for a much larger porphyry cluster at Cortadera. So phase 1 of Cortadera has built a 600 million tonne resource, and we certainly are hopeful that the access to this larger footprint will see growth at Cortadera continue this year and into next year. Inexpensive, and something that really shows a willingness of multiple landholders in the area to join this consolidation effort in building a large coastal production hub. If we look closely at some of the exploration data sets that we have, you can see the magnetic footprint of the Cortadera system in blue, the 3 porphyries already discovered, and more recently, the 4th porphyry here in the new Antofagasta land holding, which has just been confirmed with a 120 metre porphyry intercept at about 0.5% copper, reported to the market a few weeks ago. What was really encouraging is that 4th porphyry has seen quite a lot of enrichment over its near surface position, delivering 1% copper equivalent grades from shallow depths. So we're moving through that exploration program at the moment and targeting some of these features which are outlined in these images, which we feel deserve first pass drilling. Shortly, we'll be pausing the drill program and planning a second phase drilling program to follow these targets up to meet our commitment of 6,000 metres drilling for Antofagasta Minerals in order to exercise that 100% purchase option agreement.
What's the
just
timing?
moving back over to, apologies, Alex.
Oh, I was just going to say, what's the timing like on that?
Look, we have a drill program that commenced in early January. It's currently about to finish its first phase of drilling, which is about 6,500 metres of RC and diamond drilling that'll go into that first phase. We'll be pausing for about a 4 to 6 week period, compiling all of the information and sitting down with our colleagues at Antofagasta Minerals to plan the second phase and to meet that commitment. We're not just drilling on the Antofagasta land, we're drilling on some new land that we've acquired, as well as a number of targets which we've been drilling up against that tenement boundary. In particular, the depth extension to Cuerpo 1, which we are drilling a number of deep holes, and I'm sure that we'll have assays out very shortly on that, but also some of our other targets at Cortadera North, sitting adjacent to that land holding.
Fantastic.
This is some of the images of the infrastructure and the pre-feasibility work completed last year, and you can see some of the locations of the dumps and the open pits and some of that infrastructure which will connect the two deposits. The total resource base, I think, which is outlined here is just under 1 billion tonnes at around about 0.5% copper equivalent, and the ambition of the company is to see that grow and for us to be able to demonstrate a pathway through consolidation and exploration towards establishing a 2 billion tonne coastal copper play. So you can see here that the company has spent over a decade carefully planning this consolidation and working with a number of parties, and that's really how this has all been put together. We have a number of exploration targets which we're very excited to be drilling and tackling this year. A number of very large-scale, high-priority targets at Coroteo and at the Cortadera cluster, and quite a number of targets which we're advancing with the exploration team in parallel to the current drilling phase. So overall, our timeframes to put this into production represent some of the nearest term time frames for a large-scale project in this sector. So as I explained at the beginning, this is a growth phase that the company is pursuing this year. That growth phase is all about lifting the meaningfulness of Costa Fuego from a circa 100,000 tonne project, remembering, of course, that there are only about 6 or 7 projects of this scale globally available to be able to go into production in the coming 8 years. And the larger scale project currently in the pipeline is around about 150,000 tonnes per annum. We feel that Costa Fuego will grow into those shoes. We'll be able to position this as not just the lowest altitude play, but we'll be able to position this as one of the largest copper developments capable of meeting production in the near term. And so you can see here we have a schedule of further infrastructure consolidation, stepping through into a scaled up pre-feasibility in the first half of next year to feed a definitive feasibility stage for around 2 years to have the company hopefully at a project financing decision in late 26 and around a production commencement timing of 28. Now, a lot of these timeframes obviously involve assumptions based on your ability to be able to finance, your navigation through the process of permitting and final mine approval from the government. And that is the real advantage that Costa Fuego has over most of our large-scale peers in the North American market, is that we have spent over a decade securing water rights, securing surface rights, easement corridors, electricity connections, the type of things that you need to be able to actually build a project. And I guess that is one of the key differentiators why we call ourselves not only one of the lowest altitude senior plays, but one of the lowest risk plays against many of our peer projects which have not yet secured water. Water is a very critical thing if you're trying to build a mine. And 10 years of advance to be able to secure our own maritime concession, and then the physical land at the coast, which was awarded to the company at the end of last year. It is something that really makes Costa Fuego stand out. You can see on this slide where we're positioned in terms of the largest undeveloped projects in the world outside of the major miners. We're one of the few that's coloured up green by S&P as being a low-risk project. And what we're aiming to do is lift the scale of that metal towards the tier 1 plateau, which you can see there outlined. Grade at this scale range, all of these deposits are around 0.5% in terms of head grade, which is where the global head grade of copper production has gone to. So if we move through to some of these other key slides, you can see the timing of these other major deposits from the majors, from the Australian market, and from the North American market. In a nutshell, we are sitting in front of a demand requirement for an additional 40 to 60% production that the world will require to meet its decarbonisation and electrification requirements, with an industry between the majors and the non-majors that can conceivably produce about a 3 million tonne response when we're looking for a 7 to 13 million tonne response. And these are the key reasons why copper will exhibit inelastic response qualities similar to what occurred in iron ore and in lithium. So Hot Chili is extremely well positioned and leveraged to beta. This project is already showing very positive economics to be built in this copper environment, and it is certainly one of the projects that will be extremely leveraged against our peers, primarily because of the mismatch in valuation that large-scale copper equities in Australia have to their North American counterparts. Currently are trading at anywhere between 4 to 6 times out of the money against the leading names in North America. So our journey has taken us from a low-altitude coastal discovery back in 2011 to a company that survived an entire downturn in the copper price environment and wiped out a lot of our peers, to be able to reinvent ourselves, quadruple the resource space, upscale this to a senior copper developer, and now embark upon a phase of growth that looks likely to position us towards the larger scale undeveloped copper projects outside of the majors with the nearest term development timeframes owing to all of that de-risking. So hopefully, Alex, that gives you a good summary of what we're doing over.
It's a great summary. And I think it's going to be an exciting year. It sounds like, a lot has happened. It's going to be an exciting year as you move towards that pre-feasibility study. And just going through the 3D transitions there really does give you a sense of the scale of Costa Fuego. So appreciate you taking the time to go through that. I think that probably summarizes it. The only other thing that I would just ask you is, we've covered a lot of ground today, a lot of history. We've gone into the resource phases in a little bit more detail. Are there 2 or 3 things that you would want, if I was an investor listening to this, what are the 2 or 3 things that you'd want me to take away?
I think that the main thing that we would want taken away is when you think of companies that are taking a lot of attention in the North American market, such as Philo Mining, for instance, or Solaris, or Los Andes, or SolGold, or Western. These projects, a lot of them have been in the pipeline for a while, but they're all high altitude, and high altitude projects are costly. They're also very timely to bring through to production. Things such as water are very important aspects. You don't build projects without water. So to get water into the high Andes costs billions of dollars, as the Lundin Group are about to find out with their entire super development at 4,000 to 5,000 meters altitude. So a project like this, at this altitude, there are very few in the world. So from a risk perspective, Hot Chili is a standout. From a size perspective, we are one of 7 or 8 names capable of production near term to meet this growing demand for copper. But, when we look at the project, this is a project that has had over $220 million invested. You can buy it for 50 cents in the dollar, and you're probably 20 cents in the dollar on metal basis in comparison to our peers. We've also got the backing of one of the largest mining companies in the world in Glencore that has taken a 9.99% stake in the company and is assisting us to push this through development. And if you wanted to be an investor at the front of the iron ore boom, or you wanted to be an investor at the beginning of the lithium boom, you would have put yourself into investing in companies that had the largest amount of exposure to that commodity, i.e. companies with the largest resource bases will get the most leverage. So you would want to have backed a company like Fortescue Metals, an unloved company that most people doubted could ever compete against a BHP or a Rio Tinto, particularly given it was putting its arms around all of this low-grade iron ore that apparently wasn't worth anything. But when the iron ore price went from $20 to $200 a tonne, that was the machination to create the 9th largest mining company in the world. You would have, in lithium, been looking at companies such as Pilbara with these very large lithium hard rock resources, or Orocobre moving into the brine space. You would have exposed yourself to those, and of course the lithium price did what iron ore did. It multiplied by 10, and those companies now are multi-billion-dollar companies. That's called leverage, and that's called beta, and that's what we offer. But regardless of normal leverage that you have, if you wanted to be leveraged to copper, you would then go and look at the very few large-scale copper developers on the ASX that are already trading at a significant discount to their North American peers. A company in the last cycle was able to demonstrate what can happen when you're investing in a company such as Equinox, 1.2 billion tonne resource base in Africa, valued on the Australian market at $45 million, migrated to the North American market, shifted liquidity over several years, and then obviously was taken over for $8.2 billion. So there are 2 important bridges in valuation that the company is focused on. First and foremost, bridging the valuation gap to our North American peers. And secondly, ensuring that this project transitions rapidly and efficiently towards project financing. There are a few companies that can transition from explorer to developer to producer. They're often referred to as unicorns. A lot of people don't think that those things can happen. They do. And when they do occur, they create some of the largest value events in the industry. And so Hot Chili is very focused on what's in front of us, but we're also very well aware that the coming copper surge is going to position Hot Chili as a real standout in terms of value creation. So hopefully that is a long-winded way of answering your question.
It's that's a great answer. Thank you so much. And for anyone who wants more information as well, I know there are some particular points you touched on there, that the virtual site tour that you've put together for Costa Fuego really underscores the proximity to the port and the seawater intake in particular. And so I would encourage anyone to take a look at that as well, because it really puts into perspective just how close proximity you really are. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you so much for sharing your insight and taking the time to run us through what's been happening with the project and Hot Chili. It was great speaking with you, and I hope everyone enjoys watching.